All right, so we are recording now. Okay. So, hi, this is Kelsey with GreenEnergyTV. Today I'm speaking with Mr. Jon Kennedy. He is a chairman of the board of the North Carolina association called NORML. So, thank you for taking your time today, Jon, to speak with me. First off, let's start off with what is NORML?
NORML stands for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. The organization was started about 42 years ago, and it originally started out as a network of lawyers who were basically there to try to help out people who were consumers of marijuana, but were being busted for things like just simple possession. So it was really just a way to help out the consumers. Now, 40 some odd years later, it's a grassroots organization that has about 160 chapters, mostly around the United States, that are either at the local level or at the state level, and it's a way for advocates of marijuana to get involved, basically find people who are in their community, and then have two branches of effort. One is a political focus, so that they can meet with their representatives in state Congress and try to get the laws changed. And also one is for public education, so that we can basically get the word out that marijuana is effective and marijuana is safe and all the good things about it.
Okay. So in regards to just legalization, what do you see as the process? Where are we? How long is it going to take? What's your perspective on that?
Nationally, things are happening very fast. So if we had this conversation, say, 5 years ago, I would say that it was really tough to gauge, but the dominoes are falling extremely fast right now. So this actually bodes well for the movement. There was not a whole lot of movement, at least progress, I should say, for the first few decades that NORML existed. But since Colorado and Washington legalized marijuana for recreational use, we've seen a surge of interest. So having said that, if you look at the chart that shows supporters of marijuana over time since the 70s, you see a graph that that goes not just up, but sort of has this exponential growth at the end. So how this plays out is kind of inevitable. We know that in the end that marijuana is going to be accepted as a medicinal plant, and also that it's going to be it's going to be part of people's lives as they come out of the closet. And that's really what we're running into in North Carolina. North Carolina's in the South. People are a little bit, it's less progressive in the South. So here we are in the Bible Belt, and people are reluctant to legalize drugs because they think it's going to be the unraveling of civilization. But even in the South, we had some bills that were passed, even though they were just for high CBD strains of marijuana, or at least tinctures that were from high CBD strains. It's a start. So we in North Carolina, we actually have a General Assembly that was almost handpicked by the Koch brothers. So we are actually bringing up the back of the pack progressively. But what we found is that marijuana actually polls extremely well in the state. We have greater than 65% support for medical marijuana legalization.
Do you see North Carolina legalizing it for recreational use?
Not anytime soon. It's going to be an incremental step for North Carolina. So if we get anything, it'll be medical first. And then once people realize that there actually is some tax revenue to be made, and that we don't have stoners out there who are doing whatever it is that they're afraid will happen whenever people start smoking marijuana. The people who are uninitiated to marijuana, once they see that things are actually going pretty well and that their coffers, their tax revenue is going up, then I think that they'll probably be more open to legalizing it for recreational use. But that's going to be several sessions of several iterations of political voting cycles.
Okay. Well, that leads me to a different question that I'll get to a little later on. So then let's move on to, what about decriminalization? When it comes to the courts and the way things are getting prosecuted, do you believe, or do you think that they will change? How do you think those change, or what do you think is held for the future?
In North Carolina, technically North Carolina is one of the few decriminalized states, but whenever people do get arrested, it still shows up as a misdemeanor. So any possession amount that is less than an ounce and a half is a misdemeanor with no mandatory jail time. So North Carolina has actually been progressive in that sense, but as far as making some changes for further decriminalization, like having people's records expunged, anyone who had a previous marijuana conviction, that was brought up last session during the General Assembly, but it's unclear exactly how much support it's going to end up getting. We have a very conservative legislature right now that just kind of scoffs at anything that's marijuana related. Nationally, though, I see things. I don't know. It seems like things are moving in the right direction. Right now, I see this national conversation between the president and Congress actually trying to figure out who has the power to reschedule marijuana. So even though they don't seem to really know what their powers are, this is the discussion we've been waiting for. So that bodes well.
So it shows we're on the right track at least then.
We're on the right track.
Okay. So then, in regards to misconceptions, this is always a fun topic. Obviously there's, people are out there saying, overdosing off of marijuana, or it's more dangerous than cigarettes or alcohol or things like that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that well, I guess this would technically be an opinion, but I feel like there's enough research on my side that it's no longer an opinion. It's just the fact that marijuana is non-toxic, that the CDC has no reported deaths from overdose or chronic use of marijuana in their database at all, whereas 40,000 people die from alcohol use, that's chronic use, and acute overdose every year. That's just U.S. citizens. So marijuana is much safer than alcohol. The jury's out, and the cat's totally out of the bag. There's no further discussion about that. That's just the way it is. I think that now we're seeing that just the fact that it's a Schedule 1 controlled substance, that we can't do as much testing as we would like, but there are plenty of studies that are out showing that it's both safe and its efficacy is quite high. So having said that, I think that people are realizing that marijuana is less addictive than alcohol and tobacco and caffeine, for that matter. So the fact that it's not addictive, it's non-toxic, and it really does have therapeutic uses, which I could go into in detail if you like. I think that people are starting to open their eyes, thinking that this is maybe a plant that we should be embracing instead of demonizing.
Absolutely. Actually, if you don't mind, why don't you tell some of the different healings that marijuana is being used for?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is anecdotal, so I think that you'll see a lot of hippie propaganda out there, just claiming that it will do all sorts of things. But like one of my favorite signs as far as hippie propaganda is that marijuana cures cancer, and people tend to roll their eyes at it. However, the National Cancer Institute, that's cancer.gov, this is the U.S. government's arm of cancer research, has a section in there. If you search on marijuana at cancer.gov, you'll see that they show that marijuana has, or the cannabinoids in marijuana have cancer cell killing properties, that they basically just instruct the cancer cells to self-destruct. So the fact that that this isn't widely known or spoken about is I don't know, some sort of a travesty. Also, Sanjay Gupta on CNN, he did quite a bit of coverage with his piece showing how he had changed his stance on medical marijuana, and he was hinging it on how the high CBD strains would reduce the epileptic seizures in children with, I think it's Dravet syndrome, where they have hundreds of seizures a day. And while that's not clinically tested, anecdotally, we hear this story repeatedly through NORML. People calling saying, I tried a high CBD strain, oh my gosh, this is the only medicine that works and there's no side effects. And the same is true with, say, like fibromyalgia. I don't think that marijuana actually works as a pain reliever, but psychologically it tends to put pain in the background. So I think that people are able to cope a little bit better, or some people significantly better. We also hear plenty of stories about people with multiple sclerosis. Even the multiple sclerosis organization has been pushing the U.S. government to allow research, into the effectiveness of marijuana. So I think the list goes on. Now we're also seeing that there's a lot of neuroprotective qualities of marijuana. One of our speakers from North Carolina, his name is Clint Werner. He wrote a book called Marijuana: Gateway to Health, and he lays out the neuroprotective qualities that THC has. And basically the conclusion that he comes to in his book is that, if you have a head injury, then the first thing you should do is actually smoke a joint, because it acts quickly. And like if you have like a high school football game and someone has a concussion, that should be the first line of medicine. But again, that's just speculation because of the neuroprotective qualities. But it just seems like the upside potential of the plant is way higher than any downside risk.
Okay. And then just a last question, just in regards to a lot of misconception out there. A lot of people haven't done their research. They haven't taken the time to just even pay attention to really what's been in the news, some of the medical findings, and even legislation. What is something that you would say, if there were one piece of advice or one place to send them for information at this point, what would you suggest to them?
Like if people are just looking for information about the plant.
Right, and also if there are one misconception, just who haven't, for those who haven't paid attention
I think that the number one talking point that seems to hit home the best is that marijuana is safer than alcohol. We found that seems to be the easiest way to get the conversation started. There are way more benefits to marijuana. It's way less dangerous than alcohol. Alcohol is actually a pretty dangerous drug itself, but it seems to be socially accepted. So having said that, we have people that will at least accept alcohol but not marijuana. So publicly, we'll try to harp on that message just to get the conversation started. Most people are okay with alcohol, but I feel like to make that comparison is kind of putting marijuana on a level of alcohol, and I feel like alcohol has very little medicinal value, whereas marijuana it's actually quite high. And on top of that, I will say one thing: that there was the first federally funded study into the psychological effects of marijuana was published back in the 70s. But it just basically is it's a list of all the characteristic traits of a marijuana high psychologically. And if you read through there, it's a list of all the qualities that we should value as a society. People tend to be more generous, they tend to be more empathetic, they tend to be more socially aware, they tend to be more self-aware. They might have couch lock and have a sedated feeling, but at the same time, they actually have a better understanding of psychological principles and what it is, why they're even here on Earth. Whether they do anything about it or not is up to them, but there is the potential for insight there. So I feel like, I feel like the plant is actually something that everybody should be smoking everywhere.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time today. Anything else that you want to add, or?
No, I guess that if people want to get involved, we see that there's a surge of interest in trying to get the plant legalized. NORML is a way for people to do that, but at the same time, it's just a matter of calling your representative. Most people don't take the 5 minutes required to just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, how do you feel about this?" and then know their talking points and just explain the benefits of marijuana and why it's not as dangerous as most people think. People aren't doing this, and that's why the laws aren't changing as quickly as we'd like in the South.
Okay. And that is www.norml.com. So.
.org.
I'm sorry. Okay, so that is www.norml.org. All right, perfect.
That's it.
Well, thank you for your time today. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day. So, and